All right, so when something needs to be done in my business, I actually don't think like, okay, why am I even hiring for this in the first place? What I actually think is something like this. Okay, can AI do this in the first place? And the reason why I say that is not because I undervalue the work of a human or anything like that. It's because there's a whole list or a whole category of tedious tasks, repetitive tasks that can be done without the judgment of a human. And if you were to make a human do those tasks, it would just basically drain their time off from doing new moving tasks, and not just that, but cost you a lot of money because a human costs way more than the job. And in today's video, I'll be showing you exactly how I think my thinking process behind how I delegate stuff, whether it's going to be done by an AI or it's going to be done by a human. So let's get straight into that. So why am I even doing this video in the first place? Because as we know, AI is evolving, AI is getting better, and people are looking for ways to cut costs using AI. That's exactly why I have this delegation decision framework, which is exactly what I use in my business. Because before you delegate anything, you want to run it through 3 questions. First of all, that question I always like to ask is like, does this require human judgment, relationship, or creativity? If it's a yes, I always keep it human, because obviously we want to keep the human relationship alive, because imagine you have client communication and stuff like that, and you have AI in that place. Obviously, it makes the client feel less valuable and stuff like that. And I wouldn't want my client to feel like that. But if you would like that, you can do that. And second of all, the second question I ask is that, is it repetitive, structured, and follows a clear rule? If it is like that, it can easily be followed by an AI. So you can easily delegate it to an AI. And then there's a third type of delegation, which is basically AI assists and human oversees that, which is basically something that is high stakes, where mistakes are extremely expensive, but it's repetitive, structured, and follows a clear rule, which means that yes, I can make an AI do it, but a human oversees it and approves it basically. And most operational work in a business actually falls in this category too, right here, which you can see right here. And that is where the savings are a lot, because the goal isn't replacing your team, it's actually freeing them from work that doesn't need a person, so they can focus on the work that actually moves their business forward. And to actually figure out what to delegate first in your business, first of all, here's quickly what I do. I want you to list every task your team does weekly, and for each one, ask yourself, does this need judgment or is it just execution? And the execution tasks are your delegation opportunities. And if you actually want help marking this out, there's a free AI savings audit tool I'll link in the description, and you basically put in your operations data and it will tell you exactly which task can be delegated and what you can free up basically. And here is personally some tasks that I delegate for my own personal business related. For example, number one is morning content research. I have an AI that basically every morning it scans my competitors, it finds what's performing, like the outlier content, and it identifies trending topics in the space too as well. So I wake up to a briefing with content that is based on real data, not guesswork. And this task used to take my VA 45 minutes of scrolling and note taking, which I was just taking them off of new moving tasks that they can be doing to basically move their business forward, even though they are really fine. But now it's done by an AI, which means I'm saving time. Not just that, but I'm also saving money because I'm not having the VA do that same task all over and over again. Then you have the second one, which is basically my outreach engagement intelligence system, which is basically where I have an AI that scrapes the people who engage with my content on LinkedIn, the profiles who interact with my posts, comment, view, all that good stuff, and then researches each one. It finds relevant context about their business, it qualifies them, and it gives me personalized openers based on their activity and situation. Not just that, but also draft follow-up messages based on the previous conversation history. Because before, as I said, I used to have my VA do this, or I would have a tool that I pay monthly for, but now I just have an AI that does it for me, and I always wake up to a list of warm leads with contacts and ready to send opener. So you can see everything is done for me. And the good thing about AI is that you can make your work for you in a proactive manner. And you can see the third one, which is basically lead scraping and research, where I basically scrape leads from directories like Google Maps, LinkedIn, Sales Nav, all that kind of stuff, and it organizes it, filters them, and finds contact info. Then it qualifies them for me. Before, this used to take me hours of copy and paste. Now all I have to just wake up and I get an automated batch of scraped qualified leads ready to go. Then we have the call intelligence, which is something I actually love a lot because I take a lot of client calls.
So what this does is that it takes a recording from the client calls and it reverse engineers it. Like, for example, what problems are my clients hitting? What's frustrating them? How can we improve in the product or service? Because I am a huge believer of product is king. Basically, the better your product, the better your marketing, the better your sales, and obviously revenue you get to. Make sure your product is always good. Product is king. Then, not just that, but it also takes recordings from sales calls and extracts that. Like, for example, what objections keep coming up? What questions do prospects ask? And what convinced the buyers to say yes? That type of thing. And it takes all the good things and all the bad things, and it helps us enforce those in our marketing materials. Not just that, but even from DMs and community threads and comments, all that kind of stuff, it does that. And you can see all of this feedback feeds back into the marketing, so we handle the objections before they ever come up on a call. Therefore, this work would be done by my VA, and I have to create scripting tools that would basically put my account in risk and stuff like that. I will actually never systemize, but now I can have an AI do that for me, and every call, every conversation becomes data that actually improves my business and stuff, as I've said, that I would never let AI do. As I said, client relationships, strategic decisions, sales calls, not yet. I don't think sales calls is relationship living, so for the foreseeable future, I don't see AI taking that. And I have said quality control on client, because if AI does the work, you might want to add a human to make sure that everything is up to a company standard. And another thing a lot of people do is that they use AI to basically create their price and their positioning, all their offer. But one thing I would say is that you know best, so you use your data to basically create your offer. Then you can give AI to finish it up for you, basically, because you have given it a direction. And if you can notice a pattern in this is that if the value is in the execution, I delegate it. But if the value is in the judgment, I simply keep it, because you can see AI can reset and I decide. Then AI can extract insights from calls and I decide what to change. You can see here, AI can find leads and draft openers, and you choose who to reach out to. Here's a quick ideology that I like to tell my clients on sales calls, for example. Think of AI as an intern, baby. You don't trust it with judgment yet, but you make it do the execution task, basically. But now you don't need an intern for that. AI can do that for you. Not just that, but as I've said, AI can surface patterns and you make the strategy call. And here is basically a delegation like that, depending on where your business is at. Depending on where your business is at. And obviously, as you go down the delegation like that, you can do all the things below that. For example, typically, this is where ops are stretched. Well, a business that does $1 million to $3 million a year, for example. And all you can basically automate here: lead qualification, call analysis, prospect research, CRM data process, customer follow-up sequences, intake processing, which is basically your onboarding. So your team can actually focus on needle moving tasks here, which is basically closing deals, client delivery, and actually building relationships with the client. Then here, between $3 to $10 million a year, this is where departments are starting to form, like your sales department, your marketing department, your fulfillment department, and that kind of stuff. And here is basically where you want to have department level workflow and AIs, where you definitely have systems and data that cross-sync between this department. And not just that, but I said customer onboarding automation, internal reporting, because obviously there will be layers of hierarchy by this time, and also compliance. And what your team should focus on at this part is basically managing the team, strategic partnerships, and scaling delivery. And then we have $10 million per year, which is basically the mark where you have to scale or you die. And this part is basically where you want to have a full operational AI layer across all the departments that you have. Things like predictive analytics, so that you would know, so that you can easily plan your workforce, whether you need to scale down or upscale, basically, because you do not want to be hiring at the time that you start scaling. You want to be proactive about it, like that, so you can use AI like that. And also with AI, you don't even need to hire at what. But if you do need to hire, you do know with stuff like this, not just that, but also multi-location coordination, because there are some in-person businesses that are franchises of that. And obviously your team here, or should I say, the highest hierarchy or the founder, what they focus on here is basically leadership, culture, high value negotiations, and market expansion. And the math is simple because every business has people spending hours on work AI can definitely handle. And here's what the actual cost of. For example, let's say you have one full-time employee on operational work that is repetitive and the main focus of it is executing basically. Let's say that a role will cost you $45,000 to $65,000 per year. Well, with AI handling it and a few API credits or let's say cloud subscription or something like that, it's just gonna cost you about $1,200 to $2,400 per year. And you can see per role you are saving about $40,000 to $60,000 per year. If you scale that across 3 to 5 roles in your operation, you're looking about $150,000 to $300,000 per year that you're saving by either you have any more. And guess what? That comes back into your margins, and we all know how important margins are. And the good thing is that actually you're not even firing people because you're just redeploying them to work on things that needs a human and pushes that business forward, which means that you're bringing more revenue. So it's a win-win. You're saving, you're getting more money, your margins are way better. So now, it's basically the delegation audits because I want you to list 5 operational tasks your team spends the most time on. And you, for example, you list the task, then you determine, okay, is it the AI that will be doing this or the human? Then you want to list the hours that the human used to be doing and also the cost of hiring the human. And if it's AI, you will be saving that hours for that person that was on that role, not just that, but be saving it annually on payroll costs. So you want to scale that across 5 different operational tasks and add up all the annual costs, and you see your potential saving. Yeah, and this is exactly how I delegate in this way. And you can see the framework is actually simple. We're just focusing on, okay, if a task needs judgment, human or assisted by a human or AI assist and human sees, and if it's repetitive, it's simply delegate to an AI. And as I've said, if you want help mapping all this out, as I said, there's a free AI savings tool in the description where you put in all your operations data and it tells you exactly which task can be delegated and what that frees up for you in terms of savings. And put the link in the description below and you get your savings audit in 30. Anyways, that's all from me today, and I will see you in the next one.